like, share, and subscribe.
We have Thankful Animals, Thankful Me in the Make Mementos collection of digital books. So let's just start by telling us about that book.
Okay, well, I was, so excited when Familius had accepted my manuscript for Thankful Animals, Thankful Me. Well, here it is. And yes, it is a board book for the youngest reader. And it's really about Thanksgiving, giving thanks, feeling gratitude, which is something that's important to me. I was really happy that that became the subject of this book. So basically, it's about, we talk about humans, us feeling thankful for things and reminding ourselves to be thankful for the little things in life. But as somebody who writes for children, I'm always thinking about anthropomorphic animals, and animals being thankful just popped into my head. So this is a story about, well, it's really, a bunch of rhymes about different animals feeling thankful for their worlds, which of course, who knows if they really feel that way or not, but I think it's a nice way to express thankfulness and gratitude through the world of animals. So I could read a couple of rhymes from it.
Please, yes, I would love that.
Okay. A bee is thankful for its hive, a dolphin for its morning dive. A mouse is thankful for her mice, a penguin for the snow and ice. So basically it goes on from there, and there's wonderful illustrations by Angelina Ardenskaya. She did such a wonderful job expressing my words with her artistic talents. And so it's all about, thankfulness. And Thanksgiving has always been basically my favorite holiday. I've always loved Thanksgiving because everybody can celebrate Thanksgiving. Michelle, I actually live only about 100 yards from the beginning of Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. So it's been an annual tradition for my family and me to go out and watch the parade close up. And then we come back and watch it on TV after we watch it live. But, Thanksgiving and being thankful is such a wonderful, feeling to express. It's been part of other books that I've written. So do you mind if I show you a couple of other Thanksgiving
Not at all.
books?
I know you've written a lot of books, so yeah, we'd love to see more.
Right. I've written a bunch of, children's books, and Thanksgiving is one of the stronger topics of mine, I think. Here's one that I wrote called Give Thanks for Each Day. And again, it's with animals, but it's really expressing human Thanksgiving. And here's one, a silly Thanksgiving story called, can you all see it there? Called The Great Turkey Race. It's all about 3 turkeys who live on a farm, and they hear one day that one of them is going to be the Thanksgiving turkey. So not knowing what that means, they all compete in a field day to become the Thanksgiving turkey. And of course, when they find out what that means, they immediately don't want to be the Thanksgiving turkey anymore. So anyway, there's serious Thanksgiving books, there's silly Thanksgiving books. Thankful Animals, Thankful Me is just, I think, a wonderful addition to the Thanksgiving oeuvre.
Absolutely. So talk about why Thanksgiving and gratitude, why is that so important to you?
Well, I think just go living life day to day, and you just feel like things are happening and things are not happening. And I don't know, just the idea of realizing that I'm lucky, you're lucky to be alive and living. There's always going to be problems in the world, and family situations are not always the easiest, but basically it's such a gift, to be alive. And I really try to remind myself of that. Even if I'm taking a walk somewhere, it's easy, to drift into thinking about, oh, what do I have to do next? And, this is something that's bothering me. But just take a moment to say, oh, look at the sky. There's the sky. I'm able to look at the sky. I'm able to look at these trees, and I hear the birds. Just I guess there's this new thing in children's education about helping children become more mindful. And I believe that's something that I like to do for myself, is being mindful of the world and appreciating it. And just, we are all lucky to be alive. What chances are that we were born, even just to remind myself of that. So again, Thanksgiving means a lot to me. And, Thankful Animals, Thankful Me didn't actually start as that book. It was originally titled A Hawk is Thankful for the Sky. And it was a dialogue with a mother and a daughter about their lives and taking a walk together. And I was inspired by a book called The Big, Big Sea by Martin Waddell. And I have the book somewhere, but here's a little picture of it. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, it's a wonderful book. And it's about a mother and daughter appreciating the ocean, going for an ocean walk at night. But then, when it was accepted as a manuscript by Familius, they wanted to cut out the human interactions and just make it about the animals, which I thought was a really nice idea. So they distilled the book down to its essence, and now it's just the way I think it should be.
I couldn't agree more that it's being thankful for the little things. If you're on a walk, the flowers, the smells, there's so much to be thankful for. And you're right, we get caught up in our to-do list or some issue that we're wrestling with, and we can always come back to what's around us and what there is to be thankful for. And I know you wrote about it's never too early to start teaching kids about gratitude, and it doesn't always have to be at Thanksgiving. You wrote about that for us in a blog post. So you think of that as November, but why not in January? Let's start there.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Michelle, with that sentiment about Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's really all year long. And, a lot of these holidays focus on different things and different months, different African American History Month or whatever month it is, Women's Appreciation Month. I mean, that should be happening basically all year long. So that's what I feel about Thanksgiving as well, and feeling, gratitude. And it's work sometimes to really, stop yourself and to really get into that more positive mindset, because there's always something to complain about, and there's an ache here and whatever, and a bad memory, and who slighted who, and, FOMO about, there's so much stuff going on in the world, especially even more, I think, for young people with social media, which was not part of my growing up. Again, to try to get away from these distractions and get into what's really important.
Absolutely. I had an uncle who was very positive and practiced gratitude. And it wasn't until I got older, I realized that doesn't come naturally to us. It does take work and practice, and we have to be intentional about it, because you're right, we do tend to focus on, what's going wrong, and we do have to really work at it. But you can get better, but it does,
Yeah.
it does require some effort.
That's so interesting, you mentioning about your uncle, and that sounds like he was a wonderful role model for you. And I had an uncle, my mother's brother. He had some very horrible Holocaust experiences. I mean, he was never in a concentration camp, but he had to leave his home in Vienna with my mother, and he survived some really tough times during the war years. And you would never know it from him. He was always smiling. He was always so positive. And again, he and my mother were wonderful role models for how people can get past a pretty disturbing past and live their lives in a positive way.
Just thinking about, what he went through and being able to have that mindset through that and afterward, that's incredible.
Yeah, no, he was a great person, and I think of him often. He was a real a role model for me, like your uncle for you.
Yeah, very nice. So jumping back a little bit, you talked about the illustrations in Thankful Animals, Thankful Me. How did you find your illustrator, and what was that process like, bringing your story to life in the illustrations?
Well, in this case, as in most cases in my picture books, I write the words first, and I get the idea, I write the story, and then if it's accepted by a publisher, like in this case Familius, they handed it off to Angelina, and I've never met the illustrator, and in most cases I never do meet illustrators who have illustrated my book, so people find that unusual, but that's just the way it is in the publishing world. So I was very pleased that somebody with her talent was given the job of illustrating Thankful Animals, Thankful Me. Just wrote the words. They showed me sketches, and I don't even know if I had a comment, maybe one comment or two about something that I saw. And then that was it. And she took it from there. So I must say, as in most cases, in most publishers, the art director gets a hold of the manuscript, and like I did a bunch of books for Scholastic, and she has a file of illustrators, and whatever manuscript that was, the art director matched it up with the right illustrator. And 99% of the time, I was very happy with the illustrations, just like in this case.
Now, you worked at Scholastic for quite a while, and so now you're on the other side of it as an author being published by Scholastic in some cases. What's it like being on both sides of the fence?
It's nice being on both sides of the fence. When I was at Scholastic, I was actually given the opportunity to write books while I was there. And I can tell you a little bit about how my first book got published at Scholastic and how I started my role in becoming a children's book author started at Scholastic. I'll tell you, my first book was this. It's called The Dinosaurs, It's Time for School. And so a brief history. Before I worked at Scholastic, I was a preschool teacher at a school in Manhattan. And so I worked there for about 7 years, and I got a lot of experiences and memories from working with those groups of kids, and they were wonderful. It's wonderful to work with children because you get so many ideas, and you really appreciate their challenges and what they need to go through socially, emotionally. And 3s and 4s is a real interesting age for me anyway. So afterwards, when I was working at Scholastic, there was a meeting, and it was held by someone named Jean Fywell. And she's a legend in the publishing business, because at Scholastic, she was instrumental in launching the Babysitters Club, Magic School Bus, Harry Potter, Goosebumps. I mean, all these series that people grew up with over the years. And she's having this meeting, and it's called a blue sky meeting, right? And I said, what does that mean, to somebody? She said, well, it means whatever idea you have, just throw it out. Don't try to censor it. So at this meeting, I was only there for like about 2 months. And I'm sitting at this meeting with the legendary Jean Fywell and a bunch of other people. So I said, you know what? I think there should be more books published about what happens with kids in school, especially preschool, because it's such an amazing world of social and emotional growth. She said, well, what if instead of writing about kids, the books were about dinosaurs? So I said, yeah, that sounds interesting. Who am I to contradict Jean Fywell? And I said, you know what? They'll be 4 years old, so maybe you can call them the Dino-4s. And then she turns to me and says, do you want to try writing them? So this is, one of those moments in your life when something in your brain says, just say yes. No matter what you're thinking, just say yes, you'll try. So that's how it started. I wrote a sample manuscript, and it was accepted, and that turned into a series of 28 Dino-4s books. And there's still some teachers out there that came out in the mid-90s. who remember them and still read them with their kids. And that started me on the road to writing. And that's been terrific for me. And now that I'm not at Scholastic anymore, they are one of the publishers I work with, but I work with a whole slew of other publishers, including HarperCollins and Familius.
That I love that story of how you got started. That was a turning point, a pivotal moment, and you just went for it. And obviously that worked out because you have written so many books.
It was very lucky, to be in that situation, but it's lucky, and you kind of make your own luck. And I think luck is also being ready to capitalize on opportunities when you see them and not let it go by. Because I could have easily said, you know what, I don't, because that's true. At that moment, I said, no, I'm not a writer. I'm a teacher. I love kids, but I've never written. So, give it to somebody else who can write. But I decided to take a risk. So that was an exciting moment.
Welcome to Make Mementos, where we connect families through the power of storytelling for generations to come. Thankful Animals, Thankful Me by Steve Metzger is an adorable book to pass on to future generations. Start recording and narrating your own copy of Thankful Animals, Thankful Me on MakeMementos.com. Now let's get back to the video.
Talk a little bit about your writing process.
Right. Okay. Well, the first thing about writing, obviously, I think, is having an idea what to write about. So, I get my ideas from many, many different places. One of the ideas that I got was a book that I wrote called Pluto Visits Earth. And that came from, about 15 years ago when Pluto was designated as a dwarf planet. So I'm someone who has the mind, I think about things anthropomorphically, so like a young child. So my first thought is, what does Pluto think of this? Pluto must be upset. Pluto doesn't want to be a dwarf planet. So that turned into Pluto leaving its orbit and traveling to Earth to try to convince the astronomers to make him a regular planet again. And then there's another idea happened to me when I was at a museum, and there was an exhibit about Abraham Lincoln. And part of the exhibit was about this young girl named Grace Bedell, who wrote Abraham Lincoln a letter when he was campaigning to become president. And in her letter, she convinced him to grow a beard. She said, if you grow a beard, more people will vote for you. She actually said, women will like the beard and they will convince their husbands to vote for you. Because at that time, of course, in 1860, women were still not allowed to vote. So my ideas come from everywhere. And then basically, I'll keep track of all my ideas. And then I start off thinking about how I want the story to go. Let's see, I have something I can show you as something that really helps me in my writing. This is called a picture book map. And basically, it shows all 29 pages of what is in a picture book. Picture books are usually 32 pages, but with the copyright page and the title page, there are 29 separate pages. So I'm thinking, will my idea be enough to go through 29 pages, 29 illustrated pages? So I make an outline of what I want the story to be. If it's a regular narrative, I'll think of what is the problem in the story going to be and how is it going to be resolved. So I'll do that. And so then I'll have my outline, I'll type it up on a Word document. And that's when the story begins, because there's so many revisions, reading it over again and changing it. And, lots of people think writing a picture book is easy because you're writing it for little kids, but that couldn't be further from the truth, because here you have 600 words basically, or 400 words or 700, not that many words, spread out over 29 pages, and the book has to flow. And because there's so few words, each word has to really be important and mean something and really move the plot forward. And one of the things that I'm always thinking about when writing a picture book, and this is something I had to learn, is, don't write so much. Let the illustrations will tell the story too. So you don't need to say this. The artwork will tell the reader what's happening here. So again, you think, how is it going to begin? How's it going to end? Usually there's a few things that have to go wrong in order to reach that ending if there's a problem, and then the problem is resolved. So, but it takes a while to make sure those 500 words are the right 500 words.
I agree with several things you said. I think there is a misconception that children's books are short. There's not a lot of words, there's not a lot of pages, so it's super easy to write a children's book. Anybody could do it, and that's not the way it works, as you've
Right.
well articulated, that there's a lot more that goes into it than people realize. And then also the importance of the illustrations, because
Yes.
when you're reading a book to a child, whether it's the print book or even, if you're narrating it on Make Mementos, you don't just read the words. You're also going to be talking to the child about, the illustrations and what's going on in the pictures, and they're going to notice those things as well. So, two very important points.
And also, when you're telling a story, you want to make sure there's enough, action and things really are happening. So the illustrator has something to work with. It's fine to have a story that sort of takes place in one room, but, you want to give the illustrator like opportunities to show her or his, talents as well. And that helps the story move along too. So keeping the illustrator's role in mind is a big part of writing a picture book.
What do you want people to get from reading Thankful Animals, Thankful Me? What do you want them to take away from it?
Well, I would like them to take away an appreciation of the animal kingdom, kind of, appreciating the worlds of these animals, appreciating nature, the natural world. It's a big chunk, the natural world. But again, it doesn't have to be something that you take in all at once, but the book can be a springboard of, when you're walking in the park and you see a squirrel climbing up a tree, just even stopping to notice that, how miraculous it is that the squirrels can climb up a tree. And there's a squirrel's nest, and look, what did that squirrel do to build that nest of all these leaves and twigs or whatever it is? Maybe that squirrel is thankful for its little nest in the tree. I don't know. It's just an idea of being more aware, more conscious of animals, and also how much we don't want to lay too much on kids, for the state of the world, but maybe just an awareness that it's important to keep all of these wonderful species alive and well, and not endanger the environment too much so that they're, dying off. Again, do it in bite-sized levels. So we don't want kids to feel the weight of the world, right? I mean, I worked with 3 and 4-year-olds, so I know it's limited how much they can take in as far as that kind of feeling. So you want to give it to them in ways that they can manage and not feel too oppressed by, but an understanding that a living animal is an important part of their world too.
I think it's a great way to introduce kids to not only the practice of gratitude, but being aware of, like you said, just the little things as they're outside. And for them, it could be a little ladybug or a bird, or like you said, squirrel, anything, but just helping them. It's a great way to start them noticing what's going on around them.
I totally agree with you agreeing with me. And the last part of the book, it says a lion is thankful for its roar, and then what are you most thankful for? So it does bring the thankfulness back to the reader. it's a very kind of predictable book. Rhyming books help children predict the text. And one of the results of reading this book is that they will be able to read along with a parent. And every time they get to that last page, what are you most thankful for? It might be, mommy, daddy, grandma, but it could be each time they think of something else that they could be thankful for as well. So it's something that grows with the child.
And I'm thinking as you're talking, wouldn't this also be a great way a great tool to pull out, if a child is struggling with something big or small, let's pull out Thankful Animals, Thankful Me, and let's read this, and it helps them sort of reset and think, okay, let me put this issue aside and take a minute and think about what I'm thankful for. And that might teach them the beginnings of how to process emotions, and really let's focus on the positives for a second. And we can come back to this problem later, but let's take a little break and talk about what we're thankful for.
Yes, absolutely, Michelle. Well said. Thank you. Thank you. See, I'm thanking you.
Well, I am delighted to have this time to talk with you. Like I said, I know you're a super successful children's book author, and we are delighted to be working with you and Familius to add Thankful Animals, Thankful Me to our collection. So yes, absolutely. There's the print version you can buy. Tell us where people can get that.
The print version, I guess, they can go look at indiebooks.com and see what independent bookstores they're available in. Of course, I guess Amazon has everything, and Goodreads, I'm sure they're available. And just, check with your local bookstore. Hopefully they'll have a copy. It might be something that's seasonal in their eyes, so they would maybe sell it in October and November. I hope in a lot of different places.
And then, of course, makemementos.com has the digital version that you can personalize. Thank you for being with us, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Same here. Thank you, Michelle. This has been great. Really love it.